Afternoon. I'd like to welcome you to our next session. The session itself is all about rapid edit compliance, and I would like to introduce you to David Atkins, who's the Technical Director of Suitcase TV, and also John Perkins, who is from Ericsson in the UK. I believe I'm handing across to you, John, first.
Yeah.
Over to John.
Good afternoon, all. Obviously, I'm John Perkins, Head of Media Logistics at Ericsson in the UK. My role there is predominantly looking after all media prep services in our UK business, and sort of the end-to-end processes that we deliver to our clients. Good.
And David Atkins from Suitcase TV. We've been working with Ericsson over the last year on the new solutions that are being put into place. Suitcase TV I've been with for 13 years, and prior to that working with screen subtitling. So one of those who's never got out of the broadcast industry. So I'll let John explain where they started from and where they're going.
So Ericsson Broadcast Services combines Ericsson's place as a leading in managed services with some expertise in media broadcast. We have over 1,000 employees in EBS, and we provide end-to-end capabilities from capture of media right the way through to distribution, play out in a linear and non-linear environment. As I say, we've got a very experienced set of team at Ericsson. We manage and distribute over 1.5 million hours per year, and we broadcast over 200 channels globally. We have many sites as well. We've got a site in Sweden, a site in France, Netherlands, and of course UK, where I'm based. In the UK, we've got a range of services from ingest, capture, QC, validation, compliance edit that we're going to talk about today, and editing, play out to the non-linear and linear environment. So we've got a broad range of services, and today we're going to focus on the rapid compliance edit sector of our business. It's an interesting part of our workflow, this. It's very highly skilled. There's a lot of training involved in being a compliance screener. And our staff, up to today, or until we rolled out this solution with Suitcase TV, have worked in a very manual way. And what we wanted to do was to try and solve some of that. So in terms of compliance, just to explain a bit more, our compliance screeners view content in real time. And their role is predominantly to look at content and decide what time of day that particular piece of content can air. Obviously, some of that is subjective, but most of that is to Ofcom guidelines or in-region guidelines. So you could have to cater for different guidelines depending on what piece of material you're viewing, what genre you're viewing, what region it's for. So it's quite involved, and that process itself is obviously a real-time process, but the workflow wrapped around it is essential to make that kind of a simple and easy thing to navigate through. So as I say, we have to make a lot of decisions on media during the process, but to get to that point, there's quite a lot involved in doing so. So the diagram here, hopefully you can all see it. It's pretty big, I think. So obviously you'll see in the blue, we've got the Ericsson pieces. And then at the top there, we've got the client in the green. So a very separated way that we were working. This was how it used to be. So on the left here, we've got the media arriving, a tape or file. Media is catalogued into the system. That's a person undertaking that role at a PC. Then the media is transcoded. So in the old workflow, we were dealing with, we had an automated tool doing the transcoding, but there was also a person having to manage the process. So it was very people heavy. Then the media is distributed. That could be within Ericsson to a desktop, any part of the UK business, or it could be to the outside world. We employ, for example, home screeners, compliance screeners working from home. They could be anywhere in the world. So we were sending out content to them, but all of that was very much a manual process. So someone would pick up a file, then have to push it out to them via an FTP or whatever our choice of delivery was. All of that was manually being done by someone. And for us, the problem with that is they're not focusing on key tasks that add value to our customers. So that's another thing that we sought to change. And then the actual compliance screening takes place. And as I said, that's very much a manual process, and it has to be because it's in real time. It's where we add the value to the service. And then the compliance report is created, and if you see, we've got a little recycled icon there, and that's really showing that we're bringing data into that part of our workflow when we've actually already had that data elsewhere. We just haven't had a centralised database to bring it together. So it's another sort of pinch point for us. Then we were creating a compliance report, and that was all in Excel. Our good friend Excel, we all love it, but we recognise that as a thing we needed to change to improve and to push forward our business. So we'd fill it in, it would be saved as a version number, and then printed, and someone would walk around with that piece of paper into an edit suite, and then it would be handed over to the editor to do his magic on the media. So he'd create the edit, and then we would deliver a version out to the customer, out to player, out to non-linear, whatever it was for. You also see down here we've got streams of data sat in here. The data, again, was very coming from various sources, and we looked to try and standardise that to give us and the customer some standardised, customised views that people can use the system and navigate around it, and they all get the same results back as well, which is important. And then we went off to the client at times. So we may have a problem when we're viewing the content. We may say, we're not sure if we can cut this out. We might not be able to make a pre-watershed version, for example. So we'd send out a communication to the client and say, we've got a problem, can you help us? And they would come back via email and say yes. All of that managed outside of any system, purely reliant on people's local knowledge, memory and email. And then if they wanted to look at the media, we would possibly have to transcode it again. So a person would look after that process, push the media out. They would download the media, view the media, and then push that back to us to say, yes, we're happy. No, you can't make it. Yes, you can make it. So we basically ended up with a decision of sorts. So this whole process was very, very manual. Very well run because we knew, we're used to doing it, we know what we're doing, but we saw that we wanted to try and really bring the value to people, our customers, by making sure that our staff are focusing on the compliance part of the work. That's where we really bring value to the customer. So it was very much an operator-driven workflow, relying on people. We want to bring automation to it. Version control, very important in broadcast. We could make multiple versions from one original master. So you might have a pre-watershed, post-watershed, cut for day. There's loads of different options. So again, we were managing that very much outside of our sort of centralised workflow. It was making sure you're saving the right cut sheets, making sure you're saving the right files. So we recognised that as a real piece that we wanted to bring into line. Audit trail, we've talked about data, we've talked about activities within the flow. It was very difficult at times. If you get a call, what happened with this piece of media? You go and look back, you trail through lots of emails, etc. So that was something we wanted to tackle. Very much overall time-consuming process. So in summary, lots of manual movement of files, data entry duplication on multiple systems, major bugbear of mine, and I just, we'll go on to how we've improved that, but that was a key thing for us. Paper, phone and email, as I've talked about. Audit trail for media processing. I think as media delivery becomes more and more widespread, more and more complicated, more options available to us and consumers, you need to know what's happened. You need to be able to report on it. You need to be able to manage our business effectively so we can deliver our customers a good service and a good price. And high dependency on highly trained staff. As I've said a few times, we want our staff to be doing the things that bring value to the customer, make our process efficient, and really deliver an overall service. So this picture really signifies where we used to be, and I suppose what we're saying is we were cradling some eggs. We were trying to, we didn't have a flow. We were really having to look after those eggs, and you'll see where we get to later on with the eggs. David.
Right. So, given all of what we've seen there from John, what we wanted to bring to this was the ability to have one copy of your asset, and if you have an HD asset, you keep an HD asset, you keep one copy of it. You don't duplicate that around the plant. To make that accessible to the screeners, either in the premises or the home screeners, we needed to be able to produce multiple copies of a browse that could work and deliver the kind of quality that the screeners are used to internally. They're looking for issues to do with speech and looking for lip sync and what might be said in the background. So they need very, very high resolution to do that. Working from home, you need a lower bit rate to be able to get that through the internet to the home screener. So the system needed to have multiple bit rates of browse delivered to the capability of the connection that the operator was at. This means we need a central store. We have to put all the media in one place so it can be managed, so that if the high resolution asset changes, the browse copies are automatically held in sync with that. The metadata that goes with those assets has to be synchronized tightly with the asset. To be able to audit the metadata, we need to know that we can track everything. So a central store that's managing media and metadata is essential to achieve that. Global access to this media and metadata, the ability to access it from anywhere via secure methods, so VPNs and other techniques that allow Ericsson to allow these home screeners to reach the network. And the tools that we use are TCP/IP based. It's possible to allow your IT people to manage the security processes completely separately to what the underlying system is doing. The other people who want access to this is the client. So the client wants to see their own content earlier in the process so that they can be aware of any issues that are coming up. And then finally, to make the integration of the manual processes very, very tight within the automated processes. We don't want operators looking for work. We want to be able to feed them the work in a stream so that they know what the next thing to do is. The system needs to be aware of where the priorities lie. The system's got information about scheduling. We should use that to drive the process through to give that efficiency. And as John says, to make the most of these highly skilled compliance screeners who've got the talent required to do that. So one of the tools that is in use is the shot logger. Shot logger is a metadata capture application at its bare bones. We get a proxy browse window on the left here. Now that window can be expanded out and undocked. So we can actually have an entire second screen, so the operators can have full screen video, which is of a very high quality to allow them to see the lip movements and the things that they're looking for in the content. Alternatively, if they're working from home on a laptop, then a small screen is all you actually need. Down at the bottom, we have a timeline where we have various pieces of data that have been captured. Color coding is used to make it easy to see what the data that's being captured is. And at the top, we have what we think of as program level metadata. This is data that's either been injected into the system from the client database via XML imports and data delivery, or being captured by various operators in the workflow. And this might be the management team indicating what needs to be done next. It might be the screeners indicating the status of the work. It might be the client in response to a query that's been raised. And we're trying to make it possible for all of these people to use the same set of data in a coherent fashion, and to alert them when there's something that they need to be able to do. So ShotLogger provides this method of delivery of this. One of the essential requirements for Ericsson is the fact that they have multiple clients, and their clients want to do different things with different sets of data. So our data model is extendable. The actual basic model is very simple, and then we add to that a data model that reflects the requirements of that client. And working with Ericsson, we've defined that and their staff to work out what should be in the data model. This is a living thing. It changes over time, and new things come along that have to be captured. To make that easy to do, you can also redesign the interface. So most of the user interface that we see here has been, in some cases, tweaked, or in some cases actually designed from scratch to allow the correct data entry to take place. That's in conjunction with this data model that stores the data. It's a very flexible solution for delivery. It also allows them to deliver to the client a subset of the data, so they don't have to put all the data out to the client, and the client can see the fields that are appropriate to them. In other applications, we have, you might have technical data that's not of interest to screeners. You might have legal data that no one's supposed to see. So you can make this data very private. A feature that I suspect will come into play is the fact that we can also have separate client workspaces. So on a single system, you can have multiple clients with their own private data that your separate clients can't see. So you can lock this down and have one system managing all your assets, one set of screeners working, but each client has their own data space to work within. Once we've got all this metadata, or indeed before we've captured some of the screening data, we need to know what we're doing. And we have a search tool that can be configured by adding new fields into the search and setting up filters for patterns, for keywords, and for date ranges to allow you to find the asset that you need to work with. And as you can see on this one, some of these programs are quite complicated. They've got multiple child versions for different territories and different time slots. They've got lots of different states as we go through this, and these screens allow us to do that search. We can add into that the transmission schedule, so you can filter by what is going to be happening in the next few days and what's urgent. You can filter by the channel that the asset is assigned to. So you have a lot of flexibility in the way the search is done. Anything that you add to the data model can become a search term within this. And then very small writing at the top left, there are saved searches. So you can save a search that is going to be useful to you, and every time you run it, it'll give you a fresh set of results. And that allows you to give your operators a very quick way of jumping to the set of data they need. Not visible on this screen, but something else that's now possible is to save this search as a report. So if you know this gets you your weekly report of what you need to do or what you did last week, you can create a text file from the data that comes out of this and import that into Excel and massage it to produce your management accounts and reporting features. So this is a really rich way of getting into the data that you have acquired as you go through this process. Additionally, this is able to show you the browse. So we can actually double click on an asset and we can actually see the browse for the asset at this level. And if the client wants to see what the asset is, this allows them to get to that in a very quick and simple way. So effectively, what Ericsson needed was a custom solution but what they didn't want to buy was a custom set of software. So it's important that we can deliver a bare bones solution, and then we have our customization layers in the data model and the UI to allow us to deliver that. We've worked extensively with them to do this, and a lot of that customization is now done by Ericsson's people themselves, because they know their business better than we do, and it's important that we aren't driving that process. That means they can roll that out to other uses. The tools for importing data from their clients can be configured by them as well. So we don't want a fully custom bespoke solution which comes with a huge range of costs from that point of view. We need that flexibility to allow Ericsson to move on without having to take us every single step of the way. The customizable UI, I think, is really important, especially if you want to deliver this to your client. You can put your client's graphics into the UI. You can make them feel special by dressing it up for each client as they go to a form. So you can make this a very nice delivery method for data to their clients. Another thing that's important for us is to make very tight integrations with the third-party systems. We do a lot of this ourselves internally, but we don't make edit software. We're not an editing company. So it's very important that we can get a package of material, an EDL, metadata that will aid the editing process delivered to the client. Editing systems, in this case it's Final Cut Pro. So we inject data into the EDL that allows them to see data on the timeline. At the end of that process, they produce a final edit and render a version of the content which is pushed back in. Now at that point there, the system then also creates a new browse so that the client can also see the finished result without having to request a high-res master or a tape to preview it. So we close the loop up so the client can actually see what it is that they've got for transmission. And obviously, importantly, Ericsson can also confirm that it's there and set status on it. A lot of that process is driven by metadata in the model, which drives the status onwards. So over to John to walk you through his views on the new workflow.
So this is how the workflow today looks after working with David and Suitcase. As you can see, the activities of the ingest and capture still remain within our Ericsson domain, but everything else, apart from the edit, now sits within the Aqua product. So there's various parts of what we've done, really. So the data is key. We've brought in the metadata very quickly into Aqua to make sure that we've got a placeholder and to give a centralized view to the users, the client, to anyone that needs to see something about an asset or an asset we're going to create. So now there's data in the system very, very quickly. Once we've captured the media is transcoded very quickly. It's not, you see there's no person there now, no little man there on the icons. So it's very much driven by the system. We only deal with exceptions, and that's generally the way that we approach all of our workflows. Then the screening takes place, a real-time process, obviously, and then out of the back of the screening process, we create a compliance cut sheet. In the old version, we were doing that on Excel. We're now generating that sheet out of the back of the compliance stage. So a trigger. It's triggered via a status change, and we automatically send a cut sheet out to the customer, out to the edit suite. The editor can then pick up the edit in Final Cut or wherever they're working and undertake that work. And in terms of the client, we're still back in Aqua. So that was a real big thing for me. The sort of communication with the client was very outside of a process. You had not one person to the next had no idea who was saying what to who. So now we've brought that into the system. So if you've got a particular issue, you want someone to review something, you can send them a note within the system to say, please look at this swear word at, time code 2000. What do you think? Can we take this out? Can't we? All of that's done in Aqua. That then sends a Aqua Flash message to the client. They can then go look at that media via the message. There's a link to the media. They look at the media, they make a decision, and then they relay that decision back to us via Aqua. We then get a message, and we can then see whether they say go ahead or don't do it, or there's new media arriving. So there's an array of options that can occur out of the back of that process. So the key things really that have improved, I would say, are the metadata. And if anyone's involved in designing, working with a system, you'll know that metadata is the key, I would say, probably to the entire system. Without it, there's no point in trying. So we've really worked hard with Suitcase to make that metadata standard, make it make sense to the client and to us. So I think we've done a good job on that. Media transcoded very quickly is key. There's also good quality. We've got 2 quality of media as well. So for our screeners, they've got a higher quality, and then for other people within the organisation, they might be looking at a lower quality because they're not doing compliance screening. They're just looking at queries, or it could be someone over at the client that's looking at some media for scheduling reasons. We've also improved the way that we manage multiple versions. Again, versions is very important within our business. The client often wants probably 2 or 3 versions per original master that we receive. So with the metadata coming into the system and the way that it's all centrally held within a database, we can now easily link things together, as we saw on the previous search screen. You can see here original master and all the various TX versions. That's very important for us to be able to, particularly when reversioning. We may reversion something, so we'll take a TX master that we've made and we'll be asked to make another version from that. So to be able to go back into the database and say, oh, well, that's what we want, that one, very, very quickly, a couple of clicks of buttons, and we know what media we need, what we need to make, and what we need to do. And we can see that whole audit trail as well. Visibility of workflow as well. So having a database suddenly opens up the possibility of everyone that's looking at the database knowing what's going on. Strong workflow statuses throughout. So there's a status at many points: transcode, compliance, compliance in progress, compliance complete, edit, etc., etc. So everyone knows what's happening in the system, us and the client. And with the client, you can offer them a subset of what you're seeing. If there's things you don't want them to necessarily have full visibility of, we're flexible in the way that we can provide information to the customer. Data entry as well, massively reduced, particularly in the compliance creation of the report. We had, in the previous workflow, we had streams of data, but they weren't easily available to take and put them back in somewhere else. So we were doing a lot of double entry. And this, we're pulling in data right from the start into Aqua, and it's providing a massive reduction in data entry. And again, as I've said before, it's allowing our people to focus on tasks that are important and add value to the customers. Instant access of media. It's a massive improvement as well. We're not waiting for someone to babysit media being transcoded. It's there very quickly. You can go and find it very quickly on the search screens. So that's important for us. It's important to deliver the customer the media very quickly as well. And then, as we talked about, the issues, being able to relay the things to the customer that are issues quickly within the product is I think, a very good feature of the product. And also being able to relay media and messages to our own staff as well that aren't necessarily working on site. You know, we're working globally. So it's important that we can get the message out to people, and we can all work in an auditable system. And that's the final point, really. An audit trail is essential, and this system has allowed us to be more effective, be more efficient, and really help us manage our business in an effective manner. Back to the eggs. So production line. We're working with a production line now. We're not worrying about things. We're able to deal with exceptions. We're able to move on and focus on the tasks that are important. I don't know if you want something else about the eggs, David.
Yes. So I think that's key to us. We see that the amount of content that needs to be pushed around and the number of outlets that it's going through, all operations need to be more efficient. And the way we achieve that is by making a production line that can push media around, and we make operators more efficient at what they do best. It's not a good job for them to be running around the office with Excel.
Indeed.
One of the things that we didn't mention, I think, is in the new process, there is actually an Excel sheet produced for the edit screener, for compliance editors, but purely to support that old workflow so that they can transition across to a new workflow. It's important to make it possible to bring these workflows in without unsettling the procedures you have. So the whole procedure has been done alongside the existing workflow to try and get to a new platform. So, and if anyone's interested, we think they probably are ostrich eggs and not chicken eggs at this point, which seems very odd in this picture, but never mind.
Yeah, I think that David raises an interesting point. It is important. You know, we've made lots of changes to workflows. We're constantly trying to push forward and make us more efficient, make us ready for new business. But you have to bring in changes in a very sensible fashion, controlled, and you know we've done that with Suitcase. So just in summary, features of the new workflow: frame accurate metadata captured during screening. You saw on the previous slides that we're looking at a timeline. We're making markers against the timeline. And you can refer back to those markers. There's thumbnails. It's very easy to navigate your way around the media. And again, that's very important for us to do that quickly. Instant access to the media. Our clients, you know, they want to see their media. They want to be able to decide whether they can schedule something at a certain time of the day. They want to look at issues and queries. They can now do that. And likewise, we want to be able to do that very quickly within our business, so that we're not wasting time pushing media around. It's just available, and that's how it should be in this era of broadcasting. Collaborative working with clients, particularly the stuff around the linking stuff between us and being able to communicate. But in general, they feel more connected with us. We feel connected with them. We can communicate easier within a system. We no longer have to pick up a phone all the time. It's nice to talk, but sometimes you need to get stuff done quickly. So that's a very positive thing. Integration with Edit Suite, so we've talked about. There's probably more we can do in this area, but during the project we made some sensible decisions to focus on certain aspects, and now we can go back and look at EDL creation, etc. And then, as we talked about, real-time updates on the progress of media. Any business needs to know what's going on under the bonnet, and a system like this enables you to see where things are, what time something was done, what needs doing, what hasn't been done, who's not doing their job, who's not getting through enough work. There's all sorts of things you can find out from having a database. Some good, some bad, I suspect, for some people. But overall, it gives you the knowledge to run a business, and to run a business that provides efficiency, cost effectiveness, and a reliable standard service. Thank you.
Excellent. Would anybody like to ask any questions? No? Nobody? Don't be shy. Would you actually say that you've seen a significant cost benefit out of this, or is it more just to do with efficiency of working, or?
I think we're definitely seeing efficiencies. My main driver, I would say, is if we're being more efficient, then we've got more potential to do more other work, more valuable work, both to us and the customer. I've no doubt there'll be savings eventually, but I think I always look at it as opportunity rather than necessarily direct financial savings. I think it's more about looking at trying to deliver more quality and more business to more customers.
And how scalable is the system? Are you able to expand it easily to take in more workflow, or?
Yeah, I think it's it's scalable. We've got lots of probably about 40 odd users in the UK working on it. We've got on the client side working on it, and we've got people globally. So in that you can see it's easy to use, it's easy to access, and we can take that further. We can go as far as we need to. Obviously there's with every step change there's various storage implications and things like that, but there's always it's flexible enough to make it scalable.
And how important has the ability to be able to amend the user interface, and also you were saying that you guys are actually now taking on some of that work yourselves. How important is that to you?
I think it's very important. One of any product we go for, we're always looking to be able to customise, and I think be self-sufficient as much as possible. David doesn't want me going back to him and having to bug him every second of the day trying to get stuff done. So we've tried to. It's finding the right balance. There's some things we shouldn't be doing, and we leave the experts to do it. But there's stuff where if we can do it, we'll do it. And being able to customise for our customers is important. Being able to show the product as an Ericsson product, as a tool that suits us and suits the customer. The customer can see the way that they term things as well. So we might have a material ID, we might have a production number. People call these things different. They use different terms. So being able to customise labels, that sort of thing, is also very important.
And has your staff found it fairly easy to adopt the new system?
Yeah, I mean, with any change, there's some people that find it harder than others, but in general, I think it's having the skill set in a system gives you clear benefits, and staff really kind of, you have to use a system to get to know it, and once they're using it, they find it easy, and there's, it opens up possibilities that perhaps we hadn't thought of before. It gives you a chance to access media quickly. There's nothing more frustrating for a person that's trying to screen something and they haven't got the media in front of them. Now they've got the media at the drop of a hat. So you have to do the right training, etc., etc. But staff have, they've taken to it, and it's productive for us.
And has it got over the issues with things like bandwidth? If they're trying to connect from home, that's much improved, is it? Or? Yeah. That's
that again can be very painful for people. But yeah, the bandwidth and the access is as you are when you're positioned in the office. We're not seeing any difference, and that's the way it should be.
And was there, or has there been any completely unexpected issues that arose in terms of adopting a new workflow and establishing a new workflow? Was there anything that you initially just didn't really even consider that cropped up all of a sudden from this?
I think with any project, I've done a few of the similar ones. I think there's always stuff in the scope that you don't think of, and you can't think of every single workflow step. You can't think of you can do your best, but you're always going to forget something. I think you agree with that.
I think you'd always like to think that the workflows are quite simple until you start digging and discover that the complexity around some of the, I guess it's a human interaction often where reports or things are being generated. It gets surprisingly complicated sometimes trying to pin down that. And because processes are kind of operated by people who know them, if you ask them what they do, they'll tell you, and it's fairly simple. But then you discover that, well, actually, that's what they do. But there's a whole bunch of steps that they optimise down to their description, or they almost don't perceive as part of what they do. They just do it. So it's sometimes harder to actually capture the requirement, and you have to have flexibility to work around that. So sometimes it's a slight diversion while we work out the true workflow around a piece. And obviously integrating other systems has been one of those things. Sometimes you hit little bumps in the road, but you've got to keep on banging away at it to get there. So.
And is that the key part to the process initially, pinning down what the existing workflow is and then seeing where the areas you're able to improve it?
It's really identifying the workflow, how it is today, and how you want, as we've talked about, the key kind of elements that you're trying to improve, the things that cause you issues day to day, and then step through all those areas and work out the best way of doing it. And I think that's something we've done well with each other, looking at the various options there are to achieve. There's always many ways of doing something, and it's trying to sometimes find the right solution. Sometimes that may be the longest way of doing it to get to the end goal. Sometimes there's a quick way, and along the way you'll make flexible decisions around how to do that and how to get the best and how to deliver something on time as well. So I think it's just you've got to be prepared to be flexible, but overall I think it's.
Yeah, I think part of that is getting the data model right. And I think the data model has been not completely rebuilt, but there have been times when we've had to extend things that hadn't been foreseen, and being able to flex that really easily is important. And it's fortunate we went that way, but as time goes by, that model is still evolving as new features are required or new statuses, or even where we found that people just forgot to mention they had these extra states, and you have to be able to add those in. Yeah. So I think it's fair to say the data model is an evolving thing, but that's the right way to go. The business will evolve, and the services that Ericsson can offer. From our point of view, we have a software product that we're selling. An Eric's product is a service they're implementing using that product. So the two have to work together to achieve that end.
Yeah.
So.
And do you think where things are now, that if you had to go back to the previous system, you'd be able to do that, or
I think
has it made such an improvement, is what I'm saying?
Yeah,
that
it
would be
has,
very, very difficult to go back to your previous working practice.
I wouldn't want to go back. Of course, in any project there's pain, and we all go through the pain, and we get there and work through it. But we wouldn't want to go back, because we've got, as I say, we can focus on the service now. We can add value to the service rather than worrying about all the things that, running around with a tape, looking at pushing media out to people. All those things take time, take bodies, and take people away from doing something that's actually useful. So it's the production line mentality, so that we can deliver something decent out of the door, whether that be to a standard playout or a non-linear environment. So it's, I think we wouldn't, we've got what we wanted, and there's with any tools, there's always more. There's new ideas. There's always things that you think of. I wish I could do that. Sometimes they're wacky and I get shot down, but there's always things that you can or can't do in a sensible window. So it's just making the right judgments. It's also balancing the needs of various parts of our business. So you've got to take a decent sort of dissect of the people that are working within the environment, and then from that take some sensible, constructive decisions about, okay, this is the direction of this project, and this is exactly what we want to deliver. And you not always can deliver what everyone in your organisation wants, but you have to deliver something that's going to work for the client, essentially.
I think one of the things that's always interesting is that through this whole process, in many ways, the core job of compliance screening hasn't changed.
No.
Their job is still to do exactly what they were doing before. It's everything around that that's really trying to be optimised to deliver a more effective solution, so that you get the best value out of that piece of the workflow. Yeah. And that's what your product is compliance screening at that stage of the workflow. So it's important to make that as efficient, so you haven't got extra things hanging around it. So
it's the management all around that skill set, basically.
Anybody want to add any questions at all before we finish? No? Okay. Look, guys, thank you very much for that. It was an excellent presentation. If anybody wants any more information on Suitcase, where are you situated?
You can find us in Hall 2 on stand C10, tucked away in the corner. You shouldn't be able to miss us, so do come along. Excellent. Find us down there.
And if anybody wants to have a quick chat offline, you're okay to hang around for a couple of minutes?
Yeah, no, we'll hang around if anyone wants a word.
Fantastic. We have got one last presentation for the show, which is coming up in about half an hour's time. So if anyone who wants to stick around for that, please do so. And other than that, just to say thank you very much, guys. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.